Checking in with Quincy Mayor Thomas Koch for our weekly City Hall update here in the middle of May now. Mayor, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Beautiful morning. Sun is shining.
Indeed. It's definitely well received, lifting folks' spirits, I'm sure.
Yes, we can all need all the help we can get as far as that goes, right?
Sure. I'm curious to get your take on the governor's announcement yesterday on the phased-in reopening and how you feel that will be received in Quincy.
Well, I think everybody's antsy, everybody's anxious. I hear from a lot of folks that say that we should just be opening up everything again, et cetera, et cetera. And the governor's taken a very cautious approach. I think he's, I don't envy his position at all.
Mm.
And he's trying to do the right thing, listening to the medical community and following, making this thing work, following guidelines. The biggest fear he's got is if we do it too fast, then are we back to where we were? And I can relate to that. That's a tough decision. So having said that, the phasing thing has some merit. I'd like it to be faster. I'd like it to go quicker, that's for sure. But, just ask for people's cooperation and all of this. The problem with these guidelines type things, Joe, is this, it reminds me a little bit about like when we test for kids in the schools, that every kid's supposed to fit in a neat box, whether it's in math or this or that. They all got to fit neatly in those and have all the same scores, et cetera, et cetera. Well, businesses aren't all the same, and you think of, a big retail outlet that I understand what needs to be done. Then you think of, Karen Smith, Karen's Corner.
Mm-hmm.
What does she have in her shop anyway this time of year? Maybe one or two people in there at a time.
Right.
So it unfortunately, because you have to, treat things across the board, some people, get a little bit hurt in that it doesn't necessarily the same rules have to apply to them, even though the same circumstances don't apply to them. When you talk about retail, and that was just one example. I mean, there's a million examples, but so I think they're doing the best they can. They've been in touch with me on a regular basis, plus the governor, lieutenant governor, asking my opinion, my thoughts. I certainly share my opinions. I don't hold back. We don't always agree, but I respect what they need to do, and I'll never be critical of a leader in this crisis. This is tough stuff. It's always easy to second guess, and Monday morning quarterbacks. There's plenty of them out there. But we're talking about, life and safety and health, and it's important stuff, and we shouldn't forget that. That's what the decisions are made based on, people's health. So,
what types of businesses in Quincy would be affected for phase one?
Well, you know what? We're going over all that list this morning, and then I've got a conference call this afternoon on a Zoom call with a number of members of the Chamber of Commerce here in Quincy.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be going over point by point and making sure that everyone's on the same page. I've assigned Maureen Gary from the planning department, and Maureen, by the way, has a legal background in addition to her work as an economic planner. So she's been tasked with reading this thing backward and forward. And as people start to migrate, they can call her to get advice, to get guidance going forward. What I'm suggesting to businesses, everybody reads it. And then if you have questions, call us or call Maureen. Don't not look at it and then call Maureen and expect her to interpret every aspect of it for you.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be one of those things. We just got to navigate our way through it. I can say that, I'm not going to have a police department out there, looking to be the bad guy and punitive enforcement and fines on this stuff. We're asking people to be reasonable and follow the guidelines. And if we get reports about it, we're certainly going to reach out and make sure that it's rectified. But, I've had some businesses ask me, "You're going to be sending the police to find me?" I says, "No, but you shouldn't, knowing that, you shouldn't ignore the guidelines." So we've all got to work together on this thing. So there's a great quote, and I'm going to screw it up, I think, but there's a great quote by Patton, who talked about, when you have a problem, you don't have to tell the troops exactly what to do. Tell them the problem, and there's great creativity. They'll figure it out, So I think that in the end, there's a lot of common sense here that people have to just follow on, And it's not perfect. There's nothing perfect. And I understand people may be frustrated depending on what business you're in because you want to get back at it.
Yeah.
And I get it. This is a huge economic hit. So, it's the phasing stuff is being rolled out. I got a call this morning from a priest asking me about this coming weekend as far as the worship space goes. And we went over those guidelines, and of course, the Archdiocese issues them. I'm sure I'll be talking to other ministers, and others will be checking in, and we'll be letting them know, what they can, what they should do. I'm not going to say what they can and can't do, but what they should do. So, at least it's a start back. I think it gives us all a little bit of a lift and some hope about moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, the governor himself admitted a lot of it is personal responsibility, to take care for your own situation. And he admitted too, it'd be fits and starts. It would be stop, start, and then readjust as we go.
Exactly. Yep, that's exactly well put. I mean, we're not used to this because we're in this country given great freedoms, and so this is a tough nut for people to swallow over the last several weeks. About really restricting your movement, and people don't like it, and I understand that. I don't like it either, but
Right.
It was for all the right reasons. So again, if we all stay together on this thing, follow the guidelines. If you're an older person with some challenges or issues, continue to don't push it. Or if you're a young person with some serious health issues, then don't push it. But the healthier population, at least that we think we're healthy. Be respectful of people around you. I think that's an important note,
Yep, that's the face covering mandate. Really, it's to protect others around you for sure.
Yeah, when you can't social distance, depending on the settings, of course. And I talked to the DCR commissioner yesterday about getting Walls Beach opened up, getting the parking opened up. Because, I said to the lieutenant governor several weeks ago, you're going to close the parking on Walls Beach, and everyone's going to park on the side streets and still going to walk the beach, and that's what happened.
What's happened? Yeah.
And we've had a lot of issues with obviously cars blocking driveways, and so some of this stuff is optics and the Blue Hills. We get complaints from that whole neighborhood in West Quincy, the end of Fernsburg Parkway, up Malden Street, that whole area. They closed the gate at the Blue Hills. Well, guess what? Everybody parks it where the gate is. They walk in. So
Right.
so. That gets frustrating. So when the commission called me yesterday, asking my thoughts about opening up, I said, well, if you remember the conversation we had a few weeks ago, he says, I do. He said, I know what you're expecting. I said, yeah, get the cones out. I said, and now people are wearing the masks. When this was done, masks weren't in vogue for the average person because they weren't around. They were being used for the folks that are in the business that needed them. So now they get the mask thing going. There's no reason why people can't walk the beach,
Yeah. What about the Adams National Park, Mayor? Have you heard anything about that?
I haven't heard anything. The federal government always marches to a different drummer, so I don't know if what the status is there. And of course, they've been in a little bit of a limbo with leadership over there too, with some changes last year.
Yes, right.
We're due to check in anyway and things. So people ask me every day, when are you putting the fountain on? I've been avoiding the fountain because I didn't want it to be an attractive thing for folks that come and hang around and that aren't following the guidelines,
Yeah.
But a lot of things still that are up in the air. In the next days and a week's time, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. How's the opening of the basketball courts and tennis courts going? It's just yesterday it started, right?
Yeah, we're ahead of the state on that one. The Assistant Commissioner Murphy and his team came up with, and I bought into it. I think it makes sense, and by having presence at each of these places, it allows us to, not so much to be the enforcer, but, to be the encourager. Let's do the right thing here, folks. And so far, so good. I rode by National Park, and I believe 3 of the courts were being used for tennis, and we had a presence there from the rec department. So it's good. People need to get out and do things, I've been out walking every night, and I've been driving my DPW crazy because I call Prenderville every time I see a problem with a sidewalk or a pothole or I smell gas. So, we need an outlet. Everybody needs an outlet. So these recreational opportunities are a good outlet.
Mayor, I know you made your budget presentation to the City Council last night. Could you give us a little highlight of that?
Sure. The whole thing was a highlight, Joe. What do you mean? It was weird. It was different. I'm used to being in the chamber. And with a whole group of department heads with me, and and walking through it and looking people in the eye, and yeah, it's just different, very different. I mean, I guess we're fortunate to have the technology, and certainly over the last couple of months, people, including myself, have had to learn a lot more about technology and how to use it. So in the long run, that may be a good thing. Not that I want to be doing Zoom meetings all the time, but we presented the budgets a little more than $340 million. And the water budget was $18 million, the sewer budget $25 million and change. And we, as we talked about last night, this budget is probably about $10 million less than what we had planned 3 months ago. And we leaned it down. We've really, the goal is not to have a property tax increase. And I say that's the goal. I had to reiterate that a number of times. One of the councils seemed to have trouble with understanding that. The goal is not to add additional burden to people and to not have a tax increase. However, if, the cuts are further, the revenues get cut further, if local aid's cut deeper by the state, then we may not have a choice than to go up a little bit on the property taxes. I mean, the goal is not to. We'll see what happens. I think most communities around us are going to go up on the max, Joe. Some of them may be even looking at 2.5 overrides to meet their operational needs. So we're in a good place. I mean, we're not in a great place because of what's going on, but we're in a good place because our house is in order financially. We have good policies in place. We have decent reserve. We have strong management, and those are the words by our bond counsel. We have, a good liquidity, good cash reserve. Some towns are borrowing money to meet payroll. Our revenues have been strong up until this last quarter. Meals tax, hotel tax, excise tax, all of them have exceeded up through that third quarter. They were exceeding what we normally do in a given fiscal year. So, we're in a decent place. There's still a lot of balls in the air, a lot of moving parts. I mean, the legislature's talking about not doing the budget till July. And part of that budget is local aid. Unrestricted local aid is what they call it. Chapter 70 local aid, which is education money. Chapter 90, which is road money. All those things are up in the air right now, what the amounts are going to be. So, and then, of course, there's no real true modeling on what's happened here, economic modeling. We did, the country had a major pandemic in 1918 when millions died, but there's no data to that as far as how it affected the economy. Of course, there's data on how many died. So there's no true model on this. There's no playbook. Keep in mind that, as you know, the economy was flying before this occurred. We had a recession 12 years ago, and the recession happened because there were deep problems within the economy. The housing issue and inflated prices, all that stuff. This is a medical issue that has affected the economy. So in reading some of the papers put out by some of the economists, they're saying the economy should bounce back as strong in the next several months because it's a medical issue, not an economic issue. So, I think that's important to keep in mind. So I think that things will bounce back really quickly. And I'm certainly hoping that. I don't want to be foolish and be overly optimistic. We always have to be careful and be cautious, but I'm always, I guess I'm always more optimistic than I am pessimistic. So this budget is a lean one. No question about it. The goal is no tax increase in the fall. We'll have to monitor all these other revenue sources to see how they're going. And then in the fall, as you know, when we set the tax rate, we can make adjustments at that point. We tightened our belt at the end of the fiscal year this year so that in June we can with a decent surplus, and we can use that surplus toward mitigating some of the shortfalls on the revenue pieces if we need to. So the state, we're in touch with our legislators, Majority Leader Mariano and Representatives Chan and Ayers and Hunt and Senator Keenan, of course, in discussions with on a regular basis. We had a meeting last week with mayors on the phone with Speaker DeLeo and Senate President Karen Spilka. So we are asking them to look at options, how they could provide more tools to the local level in helping us getting through this crisis. Separate from the local aid issue, what things legislatively could they do to help us? For example, Joe, every year our pension obligation, the bill that we get from the retirement board goes up every year, anywhere between $2 and $3 million. Could they adjust the schedule of the full being fully funded from 2040 till maybe 2041, so that the increase this year could be put off toward the end of the calendar? So that would give us between $2 and $3 million to work with to deal with the the shortfalls on the revenue side. Things like that, legislators are working hard on with us to see if they can help mitigate this deep cut, or this deep drop in revenue, I should say. And then as things bounce back, then we transition back into where we were, hopefully. So a lot of moving parts, as I said. We're on this every day. We're watching all our numbers. I can tell you, though, the City Hall has been closed to the public walking in, unless by appointment, if you get married or something, those departments are working their tails off. The Treasurer Collector's Office has to continue to process payments every day, whether they come in electronically or by lockbox or by deposit box in the front door. And we got to keep moving on that stuff to keep our cash flow appropriate so we can meet our bills and obligations. So the assessor's office, many of them are working from home, but you can't let up on certain financial departments or we'll really be in a deep mess. So, we've got a great team here. I'm grateful for the work they're doing. There's some folks that have been working out of their house, and that's been helpful, but you physically need people in here to do the processing and people, and I say this across the board, every department has a different mission, and, they've all been very creative in trying to meet that mission under the circumstances, whether it's the library doing things online, whether it's Park and Rec doing what they're doing, opening up the parks on a limited basis. So I haven't heard any whining from department heads or employees. Everybody's working hard. Everybody's working together. No issues of ego getting in the way. It's really been a joy in a way in dealing with folks and the way that they're dealing with one another and seeing the big picture here. So I'm certainly grateful for that. And of course, as I mentioned last night, the city councils, they've been checking in on a regular basis. We've talked on a number of issues and they've been helpful. I appreciate that. I know they're antsy too, to get out of this. I mean, when you're in the retail, politics business, this is really, really hard. I mean, we're all, none of us are introverts. So this is tough on the political side as well as that retail world. I was talking to Leo from Elvis recently, and he said, some people are addicted to drugs, addicted to booze. He says, I'm addicted to people. He says, I'm dying, missing people. Think of the hundreds he saw every day, running a restaurant. That goes for all the restaurants, So in addition to the obviously running a business and making money, they're built for that. So this has been very tough on everybody across the board. So anyway, we're working it. Numbers will continue to move, shift, and change. And we have done a budget that's conservative, that's bigger than the worst case scenario on the revenue drops. And hopefully it won't be that bad, and we'll be in a good place in the fall.
Does the budget plan represent any significant cuts at all?
It does not. I mean, we're not. I mean, there's cuts in areas. We've cut the equipment line. We've cut some money out of putting into reserve. We've cut areas like that. We've frozen. Probably some positions we didn't fill, and will not put money into those positions. But overall, there should be no cuts in programs or services. We're going to be operating a little bit leaner, but the public should not see any cuts in that regard. We're not adding anything new, clearly, and of course the things that go up every year in costs is like trash collection, some of those contractual issues, the pension obligations, of course, health insurance always goes up. It never goes down.
Yeah.
The beauty on the sewer and water enterprise is the MWRA has made some moves, so there will be no water rate increase this year, and there'll be a slight increase on the sewer charge. So that's good news for families as well. If we can hold the line on the property taxes, basically hold the line on sewer and water, then that's a damn good thing for the people of the city as we deal with this crisis, and as people that have lost jobs, and hopefully we're back in the workforce. But everyone's savings account's going to be whacked, and any way we can help everyone get through this, that's kind of the goal here.
Mm-hmm. What would the extra $10 million have been used for, Mayor?
Well, you're always, automatically we were getting additional $6 million coming in Chapter 70. That was coming in this new budget. Well, I'm saying that's gone. I can't believe the state would, so there was $6 million there that we were going to use half of that for the Learning Center.
Yes.
And then the other would be just to sustain the school budget and maybe add some new programs that the state would have approved. It's called the Student Opportunity Act. we would have had to submit some paperwork and applications.
Yep.
They would have given it the blessing. So I'm assuming that, we're not going to get any new funding in Chapter 70. I hope we can just protect what we have.
Right.
So that's one example. This I could go through probably every department and give
Sure.
some examples. But so we're going to be a little leaner, and we'll get through it.
Mm-hmm. I know there was a request also for $14 million for the Learning Center. What is that for?
Yes, so that is the bond issue. If the state comes back with Chapter 70 by the next couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
then I would use some of that for the build out and not bond all of that.
I see.
But I'm asking for the full bonding, like we do when we build a school, Joe.
Yep.
We ask for the total amount of the construction of the school,
Mhm.
but we can get reimbursed from the state. So we never use the total borrowing order because we don't need to.
Okay.
That's the hope and goal here too. But even if we spend the $14 million to fit out that building in its entirety to meet all the standards and codes of today for special needs, then we're still going to save money in the budget.
Mhm.
It's so costly shipping our kids out each day to these schools all over the place. The transportation cost alone on these is exorbitant. So we believe we're going to have a better situation for families, state-of-the-art facility, great technology, obviously dedicated staff and teachers. And at the end of the day, when you net it out, what we spend now shipping people out and what we'll be spending on teaching them in-house and the debt service, we're still going to be saving hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's a no-brainer. And the other thing I'll say is that we can't and should not slow down. I mean, the decisions we're making as a city, the projects and infrastructure projects that we're doing are long-term. The issue we're dealing with right now is short-term. We're going to get through this. But, a new public safety headquarters, that's for the next 100 years. Mm-hmm. The new firehouse, that's 50 to 100 years. This learning center, that's for decades to come that these things are for. So, we have the capacity, interest rates are low, and the other important piece here, we are, and I'm giving away some of what I'm going to talk about today, we are one of the largest cities in Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We are an economic engine. We got to do everything we can to keep people employed and to get people back to work. And those projects do just that.
Very good. Mayor, before I let you go, I wanted to ask you about Memorial Day and what's being planned in the city.
Yes, well, certainly we'll have the flags up everywhere. The wreaths will be placed at the appropriate monuments all across the city. I met with George and George. Big George and Little George, a couple of weeks back with some of my team, and we talked about it. So there'll be an event, a program at Mount Wollaston, be really skinny down, and we're looking at maybe a 15-minute program where you're not encouraging the public to attend.
Right.
I believe that cable's going to cover it and show it, but there'll be no keynote speaker. There'll be no reading of the Gettysburg Address and some of those things. But what we're going to be doing is reading, as we know, every name that has passed away since last year that was a veteran. Now, normally on Memorial Day, when they read at the podium, it's those that died that were veterans that belonged to a post. And they've done that in the years past because they could always verify that. If a veteran dies, that doesn't mean a Veteran Service Office knows about it.
Right.
If they reach out for a plaque on the grave, that's when they know about it. Some people don't even put it in the obituary, some families. So we're taking a risk. We may miss a few people, but I think the whole point of Memorial Day is remembering those who serve our country, obviously those that gave their life in service to our country, mm-hmm. but those that came back now that are now passed on. So we're going to read every name since last Memorial Day who's a veteran who's passed away, and that will be the most prominent part of the program. We'll obviously do the national anthem. We'll present the wreaths, and there'll be a couple of remarks by myself and the Veteran Service Director, but it'll be pretty lean.
Okay, very good. Appreciate your time, Mayor. I know you're stretched, so I will let you go. But next week, hopefully, when we chat, I'll be back in studio.
I've never been. My nickname was never Stretch. I know what you mean by stretch, but this short guy's gone a long way the last few weeks. I'm grateful for all the help I've been getting. I'll tell you, we got a great city, Joe, and part of that is the great work you guys do in helping us to get the information out. So we appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. And please to you and your family and staff, be well.
Thanks. You as well.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Take care.